Okay, so I'm really happy to tell you about the KiVa anti-bullying program, which we developed in the University of Turku already 15 years ago, and I will tell our experiences of bullying prevention with this evidence-based program. It's very evident that bullying by peers at school is a global problem, a global concern. The prevalence of those who are victimized varies across countries, but we know from international studies that something between 10 and 40% of students are victimized systematically and repeatedly by their peers at school. Victimization has serious consequences, both in the short term and in the long term, and it causes really enormous human suffering to those who are targeted, but it also causes big costs for societies. In this global map done by Richardson and Hugh 5 years ago, we can see that the prevalence is different in different countries, and it seems that Latvia is either a medium or high-risk country when it comes to the prevalence of bullying. Anyway, it's clear, as we know about the negative consequences that being bullied might have, that the need for evidence-based prevention of bullying is really urgent. And in many countries now, people are very aware of that. And actually in many countries, there is now some kind of legislation, some kind of school law, which states that schools need to do something about bullying. Schools are mandated to have an action plan or policy or some strategy to prevent bullying. But actually, even if they are told by law that they need to do something, very many teachers are struggling because they are not so aware what they should do. What concretely could be the tools that help them reduce the prevalence of bullying? So what is missing is the concrete tools that are evidence-based. And when there is this kind of legislation, it easily leads to a situation where each school is developing from the scratch their own approach. They are thinking, what could we do to prevent bullying and to intervene in it? And so there will be as many approaches as there are schools. And nobody really knows whether these approaches are effective, which ones of them are effective, if any. And it also takes a lot of resources for each school and the staff in the school to think about what would our strategy be and how do we implement that strategy. So it's also very costly if we think about all the working hours that are needed to develop a strategy to prevent and intervene in bullying. And that's why I argue that instead of having a different strategy in different schools, we should have something, systematic bullying prevention that is similar in all schools, that provides concrete tools to professionals who are working with children, and that is evidence-based, so that we know from stringent scientific research that our approach also leads to the outcomes we want it to lead. And that is, of course, prevention and reduction of bullying. So, KiVa anti-bullying program is something that was developed, as I mentioned, 15 years ago, but the history goes even further back. In the beginning of 1990s, when I was actually doing my master thesis in the university, already on the topic of bullying, there was a lot of societal attention to bullying and a lot of discussion about this phenomenon in the media. And there were consequently some changes that were made to our legislation. So already since 1998, the Finnish school law has stated that each student has a right for a safe learning environment. And in 2003, this was further amended, and it was stated that each education provider, which is municipality, but in concrete terms, it's really the schools, each education provider needs to have a policy or an action plan against bullying. So these were the legislative changes done in the change of 1990s and 2000. Unfortunately, it seemed, based on our national statistics, that these legislations changes were not enough to make bullying less prevalent. You can see this is from the school health promotion study, which has been done in Finland already since 1996. And you can see that despite these changes in legislation, the proportion of students, this figure is about middle school students, the proportion of students who were bullied by their peers repeatedly at school was increasing rather than decreasing. So it seemed that despite the schools were told to do something and to have a strategy or action plan in place, that was not really helping to solve the problem. And that's why in 2006, the Finnish Ministry of Education and Culture made a contract with our university, and my group was mandated to develop an evidence-based bullying prevention program. I was leading the development work together with PhD Elisa Poskiparta, who also works here at the Department of Psychology. And why our group was chosen, it was because we had been doing research on school bullying already since the early 1990s. And that's how the development of the KiVa program started. And nowadays, KiVa is widely used by Finnish schools that provide basic education, which means grades 1 to 9, students who are aged between 7 and 15. And KiVa is also implemented in 20 other countries. So, what is there in the KiVa program? We have both universal actions that are targeted at all students, all the students, whether or not they have been involved in bullying. And we have indicated actions that are taken when there is a case of bullying that comes to attention at school. Of the universal actions, the most important component are the student lessons and different materials like short films and activities. We have teacher manuals where there are clear lesson plans for these student lessons. And in the student lessons, there are different activities, group discussions, learning by doing activities, booklet assignments, short films. And in these lessons, the students, they learn some basic social emotional skills. They learn about emotions, about respectful communication and respectful behaviors, about peer pressure and how they could resist peer pressure, and about safe school environment and how everyone can be involved in creating such an environment. Also in the student lessons, we want to create awareness among students about how the group might maintain bullying and fuel it. We want to enhance empathy, and we want to provide students with safe strategies to support those who are victimized. In the student lessons, the student can also play online games that we developed. This can also be played between the lessons in their free time at home. And in these anti-bullying games, students learn more about bullying, and they can also go around in a virtual school. They face different challenging situations, and they have to decide what they say or do in those situations. And they can see what happens. And they can also see, like in this figure, what the other peers are thinking if they do or say something. And this is really to provide students with ideas about some strategies, how they could support someone who is vulnerable, who is alone, who is victimized. In the online game, there is also the virtual mailbox that the students can use to report if they have been bullied or if they have seen someone else being bullied. And when they submit a letter via this online virtual mailbox, that letter goes directly to the KiVa team in their school. And that is the persons who are responsible for tackling the cases of bullying in the school. Then we have materials for parents. We have newsletters that the schools can send to parents, where we tell about the KiVa program and tell about bullying and tell what parents can do. There is a whole parents' guide that can be accessed either online or schools can get the printed version for the parents. And we are providing schools also material for back to school night when they invite parents to school to discuss peer relations and issues related to loneliness or bullying. And our important message to all the parents is that even if your child is not being bullied or bullying others, they may be involved in other ways. And it's very important to discuss with all students about, have you witnessed bullying happening, and what do you and your friends do when you see this happening? So also parents are an important role in explaining to children that when we see someone is in trouble, we shouldn't go along and laugh and reinforce the bullying behavior, but rather we should support those who are excluded or victimized. Among the universal actions, we also have some symbols that are telling everyone that we are a KiVa school. We have posters, and we provide visible vests for persons who are supervising the recess time in the playground. In Finland, at least, these persons are teachers. In some other countries, there may be recess supervisors who are kind of separate people. But anyway, they use these visible vests with the KiVa logo to tell everyone, to remind everyone that we are a KiVa school and no one should be bullied, and also to remind themselves that we are here supervising the recess time so that we ensure a safe environment for everyone. Then we go to indicated actions. So whereas the universal actions were something that all the students need to get, indicated actions are targeted at those students who are involved in bullying cases. So when there is a case of bullying that comes to attention, often, for instance, a parent calls to a teacher and tells that I'm worried because my child told that he has or she has been bullied. And then that's the responsibility of the KiVa team of the school to tackle those cases of bullying. And often the KiVa team consists of 3 teachers or other professionals who are working in the school. There may be a principal, there may be a school psychologist, there may be a school social worker, or KiVa team members can be teachers. In bigger schools, there can be several KiVa teams, but in smaller schools, there is typically a team of 3 people. And they are trained and they get clear guidelines, a procedure that they follow when they will know about a bullying case. They get training, and in the KiVa manuals, we give them detailed instructions how they should work with the students who have been involved in bullying, how they should work with those who have been victimized, how they collaborate with parents, and how they follow up and make sure that bullying has really ended. The third important part, besides universal actions and indicated actions, is the monitoring. It's important that the schools know what their situation is. Are there many students who experience victimization? How do the students think about the school safety? And so on. And that's why we provide KiVa schools online surveys. So every year there is a student survey towards the end of the school year, and there is a staff survey where we ask the school staff to what extent they have really implemented all these actions just described, how many KiVa lessons they have given, how many cases have been in the KiVa team discussions, and so on. And each school gets their own feedback so that they can monitor annually what is their situation and how their situation relates to the situation in other schools, and how their situation has changed since they started to implement the KiVa program. So this is now just one page of the long report that the schools get every year, and they can use it. It's very informative. They will know how many students in our school feel that they have been bullied, how many of them have not told anyone, how long they have experienced this, and so on. We have done a lot of research on the effects of the KiVa program, and the first evaluation study was done already in 2008 and 2010. 2007 and 2008, in 2 school years. It was a very large study, randomized control trial, which means that the schools that were involved in the study were randomly assigned into 2 groups, KiVa schools and control schools. And there were more than 100 schools in each category. So this was a huge evaluation. We had more than 25,000 students included in this evaluation study. And we found significant reductions in bullying and victimization, but also positive effects on many other things. So we found many positive side effects of the program. For instance, improved school liking and academic motivation. In this slide, you can see the changes in being bullied by different forms. So we were assessing many different types of victimization. And you can see the forms here, for instance, verbal bullying, social exclusion, physical bullying, such as hitting and kicking and so on. And the last one is cyberbullying. And here are the changes that took place in KiVa schools during 1 school year, the first school year when the KiVa program was implemented. So to interpret this figure, for instance, for verbal bullying, minus 30% reduction in verbal bullying if we compare the KiVa schools with the control schools where the program was not implemented. And we were very happy that we found decreases in so many forms of bullying, because sometimes it has been suggested that if we intervene at school, maybe bullying gets more hidden and maybe it goes online, for instance, and then maybe then cyberbullying increases. But that did not happen. Actually, cyberbullying was one of the forms where we found a very big reduction. You can see minus 50%, meaning that there were 50% less cases than in KiVa schools than in the control schools when KiVa had been implemented for 1 year. And as I mentioned, we found many other positive effects on empathy. Students in KiVa schools were showing increases in empathy, stronger anti-bullying attitudes, stronger efficacy beliefs regarding defending the victims. That means that the students felt that they are able to support those who are victimized. And they also made more effort to support those who were victimized. And there were decreases in reinforcing and assisting the bullies. And this means behaviors such as laughing when someone is being victimized, or joining in the bullying and assisting the bullies in their mean behaviors. And all these behaviors were decreasing over the course of the school year in KiVa schools. Also, we found reductions in students' social anxiety, and we found positive effect on their perceptions of the peer climate. And we were very happy to see that also students' school liking and even their motivation to study and to achieve academically was increasing. Children also started to view their teachers differently in KiVa schools, so they started to perceive their teachers as clearly being against bullying, and they also started to believe that teachers are able to reduce bullying. And we also had teachers answer our questionnaires during this evaluation study before and after implementing KiVa for 1 year, and also teachers self-evaluated competence to tackle bullying was increasing during the year. All these findings were found during this randomized control trial, this huge evaluation study that we did. And then the Ministry of Education wanted, after these positive findings, that okay, we want to implement this program widely in Finnish schools. And in 2009, we invited all the Finnish schools that we told them that now the KiVa program is available. And the ministry actually supported the implementation so that they provided all schools the training and all the materials and the manuals free of charge. in the first years. And since we have been following these schools, we have the student survey every year, and we have been seeing declines year by year, not always big changes. Actually, here we can't see much of the change, but anyway, we can see this trend, which is clearly that the prevalence of students who are being bullied and those who are bullying others, they both come down. And now there are more bars. This figure is not completely updated, but now these bars are already lower again. So this has really been a continuous development since KiVa program was implemented. And I showed you in the beginning that from the 2000 to 2009, the prevalences were increasing. And this is now from the school health promotion study. But when we implemented KiVa in Finland widely, this trend changed and it turned into a downward trend. Of course, it's very important that when such a program is used for a long time, schools should be continuously motivated, and there should be some boost so that they don't forget about the program. Because oftentimes it can happen that first years the schools are really implementing the program, delivering the lessons and so on, but then it gets less and less. And that's why we have been thinking about the ways in which we can support and help schools in implementation. There is the pre-implementation training before they start to use the program, and we have different face-to-face and online training courses for staff in KiVa schools. Detailed manuals also help, and we want to update these manuals regularly. We send newsletters to KiVa schools 4 times a year to remind them about all these activities. We have organized KiVa days every second year here in Turku. We invite people from adults who are implementing the program to hear about most recent research findings and to share their experiences with KiVa, also to share their challenges and how they have overcome these challenges. Just before the COVID pandemic, we organized on the road training tour where we were traveling around Finland and had trainings in different regions in Finland. We have organized webinars, and we also provide schools with consultation in difficult bullying cases. KiVa is being implemented in many other countries. I don't even have everything listed here because the most recent developments are not updated here. And as you can see, there are many, most of them are from Europe, but we also have, for instance, Chile is here, and now we have also other countries from Latin America, but you can also see that one Baltic country, Estonia, was among those who have started early and who have been implementing KiVa already for 6 years. And they are doing very fine. And now in many of these countries also they have their local KiVa days. So we have had a pleasure to visit their KiVa days and meet the school personnel there. And we want to think about KiVa so that it's not just a program and not just the manuals that we send to school, but it's really a global community where we all together, researchers, partner organizations, trainers, schools, we all work together for this common good. We want to continuously develop these tools to ensure safe learning environment for all children everywhere. And this is the website of the KiVa program where you can read more about KiVa and about research findings, and there is also a contact form you can use if you want to ask more or if you are interested in partnership with KiVa. But I think this was my last slide, yes, and I am very happy to answer to any questions that you may have related to KiVa or school bullying.